Greetings from the reprint of Eldrazi Temple, where we are going to probably open one of two banned commanders. My name is John from the MTG Thoughtcast, and this is Pack It In, where we're going to open up a booster pack and get as many cards as we can into your commander decks. Today we have Modern Masters 2015 edition. Modern Masters 2015 edition. Instantly right here looking at this pack, you'll notice it is a square cardboard box. This was the first and only time that they tried using this kind of renewable booster pack thing, and they decided to implement it firstly on one of their most premium products at the time, and it just resulted in a bunch of damaged cards out of the gate and a lot of theft and mishandling of product, because these booster packs, because you could see here, they're just cardboard and you could just like try to slip them open and slip new cards inside. So it was a very weird, interesting case study that they decided to try to use this new renewable packaging. I'd love to try to see something like this happen again in the future, but unfortunately for the safety of cards, I don't think they'll ever implement something like that again. But here we are with a Masters product, though. Otherwise, though, these are really fun and interesting, like, reprint things. Basically, nothing ever new is printed into sets like these, and you can get some very powerful stuff. Not necessarily just for Modern, but for, like, all types of play at all rarities. So let's dive right in and see if we can open up something juicy. Burst Lightning for a red mana is an instant kicker for 4. Not Lightning Burst, Burst Lightning. Lightning Burst is something different. Burst Lightning deals 2 damage to target creature or player. If Burst Lightning was kicked, it deals 4 damage instead. Sure, if you need a kicker spell. I don't know if 5 mana for 4 damage is good. If you're going to do 5 mana, you're kind of already at Lava Axe at that point then as well, and 5 damage, 5 mana at the rate there. So I don't think that's super playable, but it's neat if you're looking for kicker spells. Mana Leak, 1 and a blue for an instant. Counter target spell unless the controller pays 3. Personal hot take, these types of counter spells that have a mana requirement into them, I think they are underutilized and underplayed in Commander. The amount of times a Commander deck can have somebody go for a big splashy play by tapping out all their mana specifically, these can be some of the cheapest forms of counter spells that you can play in decks. They're not good at all stages of the game, but I think more people should be giving them a try. These types of Mana Leak style cards, you can really catch people off guard if you have to tax them on their mana. Mighty Leap, 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains flying till end of turn. It's fine. There's better cards, but we probably don't want this. Grimfliction, 2 and a black for an instant. Put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, then proliferate. Yeah, super neat. Proliferating decks have been pretty popular nowadays since we've had Proliferate come back into mostly Commander products, and then War of the Spark and Phyrexia All Will Be One also featured proliferating heavily, so a proliferate style deck is super cool, and this card can incidentally maybe kill like a Mana Dork and then absolutely boost everything of yours that you have down in play that has counters on it. Super cool. Repeal, X and a blue for an instant. Returns target non-land permanent with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand and draws a card. Flexible. It's neat that you can have X go into the cost. Needing to match the mana value of the thing that you are trying to bounce kind of sucks, but it is cool that it replaces itself as a card in your hand, so neat. Conclave Phalanx, 4 and a white for a human soldier. It's a 2/4. Convoke. Convoke means that you can tap your creatures and they can help you produce mana to cast this spell. And when it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. That's super cool. So if you've got a big down board, we've actually talked about Convoke before here on this show, that it with enough creatures down in play, and specifically creatures of a correct color, spells that have Convoke can come down for free. So if you convoke this just off of creatures alone, there you go. That's already, this thing enters, gains you like, what, 5 life if you convoke it for full cost. If you have a full board, this can gain you lots of life. Super neat. I don't know if I'd be playing that in like a token's shell or anything like that. It is just a 2/4, but I guess it's a 2/4 soldier if you're looking for something. What is this word? Tukatung? Tukatung Thallid? I'm gonna go with Tukatung. A green mana for a 1/1 fungus. When it dies, you make a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. Sure, this is, we've seen cards like these before. Doomed Traveler and Doomed Dissenter at 2 mana. So yeah, just little dorks that replace themselves into another dork when it dies. That's really good sacrifice fodder. Wrap in Flames. 3 and a red for a sorcery. It deals 1 damage to each of up to 3 target creatures, and those creatures can't block this turn. Could be super handy to get large creatures out of your way if you need to swing in with some combat damage, but you're probably better off just giving your creatures keyword evasion anyway, so not crazy, but neat all the same. Simic Initiate. A green mana for a 0/0 human mutant. Humant. Mutahuman. Nope. We'll workshop that. It's a 0/0 with Graft 1. Graft means that it enters with a +1/+1 counter, and when another creature enters, you can move the +1/+1 counter from it onto the other creature that entered. Works both ways actually as well. So it just says it cares about when a creature enters. So if you have some kind of benefit of moving a counter from something of yours to something of your opponent's, this and any kind of graft cards are able to do that kind of effect. Obviously, what this wants you to do with your own deck is you play this early, has its counter, and you store other counters onto it. And then as your other creatures come in later, you just start grafting the counters from this onto your other relevant creatures. Neat. It's super cool. Again, nice little sneaky play that you could do of moving counters to your opponent's creatures if you have something that cared about that kind of thing. Ulamog's Crusher, the big Eldrazi's. Here we go. 8 colorless mana for an 8/8 Eldrazi. Annihilator 2, and it attacks each turn if able. You were going to be swinging with this anyways, and Annihilator is fantastic. We've talked about Annihilator before, I believe, but when something with an Annihilator and a number attacks, the defending player has to sacrifice a number of permanents equal to the number of the Annihilator. And that can be anything on their board. Creatures, artifacts, enchantments, lands. That's usually what the Eldrazi are all about. Just strip them away of all their resources. Very cool. A very casual friendly Eldrazi here sees some decent play in a variety of colorless shells. If you just need like a big beater like this, but you don't have the money or something like that to get some of the other really big Eldrazi Titans. Super cool. Into our uncommons now. Karplusian Strider. It's a 3 and a green for a 3/4 Yetis. We love Yetis. They're so cool. Karplusian Strider can't be the target of blue or black spells. This does unfortunately work against you as well. It doesn't say of your opponent's control, so you can't be hitting this with any kind of blue or black like pump spells or protection spells or anything like that. But this thing is very hard to hit with some of the most iconic and traditional removal spells Commander has to offer, right? This obviously can get Swords to Plowshares, but I could think of worse targets to throw auras onto. That seems super cool. Oh, what is this word? Kumalox? Kumalox. Sure, let's go with Kumalox. 6 in double blue for a 5/4 beast. Beast? Not a jellyfish? That is a jellyfish. Modern magic. Tell you what. 5/4, it's a beast. Affinity for artifacts and flying. You probably want to play like Thought Monitor over something like this as well, but it is a really big body in the air, I suppose. That's neat. I've never seen this card before. That is clearly a jellyfish. Mortar Pod, 2 mana for an equipment, living weapon. It enters and makes a 0/0 black Phyrexian germ creature token, and then this equipment attaches to that germ, and the equipped creature has +0/+1, and sacrifices creature, deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Super cool. This is a piece that you could use in some kind of engine of being able to sacrifice the germ into this and then pick up the mortar pod or send the mortar pod to the graveyard and then recast it from the graveyard, and then it remakes another germ that the germ then has the ability to sacrifice and deal a damage. So there's definitely some looping potential with a card like this. Otherwise, it's not the greatest living weapon card, but there's some combo potential in there potentially. Ooh, hello friend. Vendilion Click is our mythic of this pack. 1 blue and a blue for a legendary 3/1 fairy wizard. Flash, flying, and when it enters the battlefield, look at target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, that player reveals the chosen card, puts it on the bottom of their library, then draws a card. I know this little friend has been, and I don't know if maybe still is, I'm not a 60 card constructed person, right? I don't play Modern, I don't play Legacy, so I don't know where Clique has fallen nowadays as far as the competitive scale is concerned, but this for a very long while was one of the most all-star cards in Modern. I'm guessing where this is lies now because of the 1 toughness, and we live in a world with Orcish Bowmasters now. This is probably fallen out of favor, but in Commander, this is a very interesting fairy. Because it says a target player, you could have this come back down at the end step of somebody else's turn. You just look at your own hand and ship the worst card of yours to the bottom of your library and redraw, and that'll do that anytime it enters the battlefield. So makes a pretty interesting blink target, and then when you're done picking on yourself, you could start picking on somebody else as well. You could like, oh, there's a very weird shell in here somewhere of being able to like target yourself infinitely with this, and you would never deck yourself out because the cards don't go to your graveyard or anything like that. This takes a card from the player's hand, puts it on the bottom, and then they redraw. So I wonder if there's some very interesting shell of some kind of doing an infinite blink with Vendilion Click. That's super neat. And our foil is Nameless Inversion. 1 and a black for a tribal instant, now called Kindred. This has been errata not even probably, it does say that now. Tribal has been scrubbed out, so this would now say Kindred instant. Shapeshifter. The card is all creature types, and target creature gets +3, -3, and loses all creature types until end of turn. Super cool. A popular deck idea that's come up with this card before has been Zask, I think it's called. It was like an insect legendary from one of those Jumpstart sets, and it allowed you to play insect cards out of your graveyard. Being able to constantly use removal like this out of your graveyard is super cool. Otherwise, I mean, it counts as casting a creature of any type when you go to play it. The +3, -3 could be used both offensively and defensively if you have the right setup of stronger power than toughness. Very neat card. I think it's super cool. A very, very interesting set of cards here, because like on the one hand, some of this stuff does read pretty plain, basic, and boring, but on the other, there's just like a huge selection here of things that like, especially a casual play as well. There'd be all kinds of really fun stuff in here. Probably, though, just going right out the gate, the most playable card that I would play in something is the Vendilion Click, like we just said. I don't know if this actually would even make an interesting commander, but it probably would be an interesting, an interesting case scenario to give it a try. Try some mono blue with Vendilion Click, set up some kind of infinite blink engine of some capacity, target yourself infinitely, and not even necessarily deck yourself out, use some kind of other engine on the battlefield. Immediately what comes to mind is something like Psychic Corrosion that mills everybody equal to any time that you would draw a card. So you get to basically do that infinitely and you never deck yourself out. It would just be a weird, interesting new take on the I draw my cards infinitely. Now you can literally infinitely draw your deck. I think that'd be a very cool and spicy way to build mono blue. Apart from that, I don't know, it's very strange. I do play the Ulamog's Crusher in a casual colorless deck as well, so I do like the Ulamog's Crusher. Again, there's combo potential with Mortar Pod. If you can loop it in and out of the graveyard, that would infinitely shoot everybody. And I stand by my case that I think Mana Leak and these types of cards should be counter spells that people use more often in their builds. And this has been our dive into Modern Masters 2015 edition. Did you ever opened any of these Masters products before for Commander playables? Let me know down below what kind of stuff you've opened before. How would you build a Vendilion Clique mono blue infinite draw deck? I'd love to see some suggestions on something that I could try to build now that I've got this card. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Pack It In, and we'll see you next time for the next boosters.